Today's video is brought to you by Cars and Bids, my enthusiast car auction site that recently sold this, and this, and this, and this, and this. This is Doug DeMuro, and today I am coming to you from a new location with worse lighting, but the same fantastic content. Or at least content. This particular video is especially weird. It's going to be my brilliant, quirky, strange, exotic car pricing theory. It tells you how to value exotic cars. This is definitely going to be kind of an obscure video, but some people like it. It gives you a real window into the mind of Doug. So let's do it. Okay, so valuing exotic cars. You think the market values the cars at the price they sell for, and that's it. But I started to look at the exotic car world in a slightly different way based on market capitalization, market cap. This is a term that is commonly used in the world of finance. And basically what it means is you take the amount of shares of your company that are available and you multiply it by the share price, and that gives you basically the valuation of your company. If your company has 1,000 shares available and cost $100 a share, then the total value of your company is $100,000 multiplied together. That's your market cap. This term is commonly used in the finance world to value businesses. And so I thought to myself, why shouldn't we use it to value cars? So here's how I've been thinking about it. You take the average sale price of an exotic car, you multiply by the number made, and that gives you the total market value of an exotic car. And it tells you how the market actually treats these cars. Yes, a McLaren F1 is worth $25 million, but there's only 64 road cars, whereas a Carrera GT worth $1.5 million, there's 1,300 of them, which is actually valued higher by the market. It's kind of an interesting exercise. And when you put them all in a spreadsheet, you actually start to get the effect of seeing some cars are valued higher than you realized by the market, and some cars are valued lower. Now, quick caveat, I'm not saying that a car with a high market cap or a low market cap is overvalued or undervalued. I'm going to do some of that speculation at the end of this video, but I'm not saying it's over or undervalued. I'm just saying that's where the market values it. Allow me to explain a little bit. The Ferrari F40, one of the greatest cars of all time, they seem to be now transacting on average for around $2.5 million. Whereas the Ferrari Enzo, they seem to be transacting on average for around $3.5 million. Now, in your mind, you think to yourself, well, that makes the F40 less valuable than the Enzo. The Enzo costs more, but there are 1,311 Ferrari F40s, and there are only about 500 Ferrari Enzos. And so if you multiply to get the market cap, you discover that the F40 market cap is around $3.3 billion. That's the total value of all aggregate F40s, whereas the Enzo market cap is only around $1.8 billion. And so the F40 is actually valued higher by the market when you think about it on a per car basis. The F40 is easier to find than the Enzo by a factor of almost 3, and yet people still pay close to the same price for an F40 as an Enzo. Now again, I'm not saying the F40 is overvalued or the Enzo is undervalued. I will make some of those speculations near the end of this video. All I'm saying is the market has deemed the F40 more valuable than the Enzo, despite the fact that it seems like it's cheaper. There are so many more of them that it shouldn't cost that much relative to the Enzo, and yet it does, which suggests to you that the F40 is actually being treated in higher regard by the exotic car world than the Enzo. It's an interesting concept, isn't it? Now, there are a couple of things that happen when you take this theory to its conclusion. And I've got a little spreadsheet here with like 40 exotic cars on it. I've been kind of messing around seeing where they fall. And one interesting thing is an enormous amount of exotic cars are clumped in the $1.3 to $1.8 billion total market cap, which suggests to me that that's sort of like the norm for desirable exotic cars. As an example, Carrera GT, they built 1,270 of them. They sell for an average of about $1.2 1.3 million, so their market cap is about 1.6 billion. The 918 Spider, they made 918 of them, they sell for 1.7 million, market cap is about 1.6 billion. The Ford GT, the one I have, the 0506, they made 4,038 of them, they sell for about $385,000, market cap is about 1.6 billion. You kind of get where I'm going with this. Even the famed McLaren F1, they made only 64 road cars, they sell for an average of $25 million, market cap 1.6 billion. It actually fits in. They all kind of fit into this realm, or a lot of them, which is surprising. Even the famed Ferrari 250 GTO, they made 36 of them, they cost about $50 million, that's what they seem to be selling for, market cap 1.8 billion. And you can do this with the Miura, market cap is about 1.4 billion, Ferrari F50, market cap around 1.4, the new Ford GT, market cap around 1.5, and of course it depends a little on average values that you use. Things can change a little bit, but I've used what I've deemed average values. You can make your own spreadsheet and change it a little bit, but you get the idea. It is interesting that a lot of the really desirable cars clump in the 1.4 to 1.8-ish billion dollar market cap range, and I already mentioned the Enzo is right in that range as well at around 1.8. So you might be wondering what cars are above that. What cars the market valuing higher than the norm of some of these special exotic sports cars? There are a few. One interesting one, the F40 is obviously one of them. Like I mentioned earlier, its market cap is around 3.3 billion, so the market clearly views that as more special. Now again, I'm not saying it's overvalued. I'm saying the market says it's more special. That still could mean it's undervalued. Maybe the market doesn't even, maybe it's even more special than the market thinks it is. But the point is, the market says it is more special than the Carrera GT, the Enzo, etc., etc. Another one, the highest market cap of all, at least of all the cars I could come up with on my spreadsheet, the Mercedes-Benz 300 SL, which sell these days for an average of around $1.4 million, but they made 3,258 of them. Listen to this. The Mercedes-Benz 300 SL is more common than the Ferrari 550 Maranello. That is an actual truth. There are more 300 SLs than 550 Maranellos, but the 300 SL sells for 1.4 million. The result is a market cap of $4.6 billion for the 300 SL, making it the most valuable car on my spreadsheet. That suggests to me that the market really, really values that car and views that as a really, really, really special car. And you want to know something? It is. The market is correct about that. And in fact, I'm not surprised to see the 300 SL and the F40 take the top spots on the market cap spreadsheet, because they are cars that stand out even in a world of supercars for being tremendously special. The 300 SL was like the first supercar, one of the most beautiful cars ever made, this tremendously iconic vehicle. F40, Enzo's last car, etc., etc. I mean, there are reasons these cars are so highly valued, and it's interesting to see that the market really does treat them that way. It's not just that the 300 SL is expensive, it's that on a market cap basis, it's the car. And that's one cool thing that thinking about exotic cars this way kind of does. It really brings out some cars as, okay, the market really loves this car. And then you start to look at things a little differently. Now, one other car that has a higher than usual market cap, interestingly, is the LaFerrari. Ferrari made around 900 LaFerraris, and they're selling for around 3.2 million these days for a total market cap of $2.9 billion. That is a significant increase from the norm 1.6 to 1.8 realm of so many other cars. So LaFerraris are very, very, very highly valued by the market. Whether or not they deserve to be, you can discuss with your friends, or I'll talk a little bit about it at the end, like I mentioned. Now, one other interesting thing about this is there are some very amazing and very valuable cars that are actually kind of low from a market cap perspective. For instance, the McLaren P1, a fantastically wonderful special car. They're selling on average for around $1.6 million right now. It's a very desired, hotly prized car, but McLaren only made 375 of those. So the market cap for the P1 is struggling at around $600 million. That suggests the market thinks that a Carrera GT is 3 times more desirable given their difference in market cap. And that makes sense to me. P1s are hard to find. They're really, really rare, but the market has not rewarded that rarity with a higher price point. Same deal with the Mercedes McLaren SLR. There's 2,157 of those. The average value is around $400,000 for market cap of around $865 million. They're doing well, they're doing okay, but the market has not deemed that a truly, truly special car worthy of entrance into the 1.4 to $1.8 billion group of cars range, and I find that interesting. Now again, I'm not trying to make judgments on these particular cars, I'm just saying the market has decided that they are less valuable. But let's make some judgments. Like I said, I'm going to do that. Let's make some judgments. I want to talk about a couple cars that I think seem either low or high. I'm going to start with the Lamborghini Countach, which has seen an absolutely crazy run up in values over the last couple of years. I think objectively, it's probably still undervalued. Lamborghini made less than 2,000 Countaches, around 1980 or something like that, and the average sale price is around $550,000. Now, Countach sale prices are very variable depending on the trim and the version, but the average is around $550, which puts them at a $1 billion market cap. To me, that doesn't seem high enough. The BMW Z8 has a higher market cap than the Countach, and I just don't think that's right, especially considering how special and how rare and how desirable the Countach is. It is really one of the most iconic cars. And in fact, you see this with a few Lamborghinis on this spreadsheet. The Diablo, they made about 3,000 of those, market cap's only around 690 million. Murcielago, they made about 4,000, market cap's around $1 billion. All of those cars have really started to rise in the last few years. And I suspect that you could imagine where those cars are going. They are heading up to the $1.4 to $1.8 billion market cap segment. The Mura's already headed up there. They made 764 Muras, about 1.8 million is the average sale price over the last few years. That car has a market cap of around 1.4 billion. Now this wasn't always the case. Muras were undesirable. Countachs were selling for $75,000. But as Lamborghini has become a more legitimate company, and as they've gone away from the manual transmissions and the carbureted V12s, people are now looking back in the history as an opportunity to buy some of these special cars, and they have really all started to come up in value. And I think their climb on this spreadsheet is very, very, very clear. All of them, the Mura, the Countach, the Diablo, and the Murcielago, will all continue to rise. Now, the next one I want to talk about is the 300 SL. Like I said, the market value is incredibly high. It's a very special car. $4.5 billion special. I think that given that there are more 300 SLs than 550 Maranellos, paying $1.4 million is crazy. And here's the other thing about 300 SLs. They're all still out there and they're all still nice. If you understand what I mean. Like, there has been so much attention paid to 300 SLs that they've all been perfectly restored. They're all beautiful. It's not uncommon to see them. At the Colorado Grand every year, there's 20 of them. At every concours, there's 15 of them. They're not as special as the market says. Now, the thing that makes that car special is not its rarity. It's everything else. The first supercar, the beauty, the gull-wing doors, the fact that this Mercedes-Benz timeless design is carried on for so long. There's so many other factors. But still, considering a 3,300 unit production run, it seems pretty wild. I could only dream of my 4,000 unit production run Ford GT ever getting anywhere near the values of the 300 SL. Now, here's another one to look at on this spreadsheet, McLaren. Aside from the very famous McLaren F1, McLaren just can't make their cars get up to the desirable value peak in the $1.4 to $1.8 billion range. Their cars just don't join those other cars by being appreciated that much on the market. The McLaren Senna, they sell for about 1.1 million. It's a lot of money until you consider they only made 500. So the market cap is around $550 million. That's only a little more than a Ferrari 360 Challenge Stradale. The Speedtail, which I love and I think is one of the coolest cars ever made, incredibly special. They're selling for about 2.2 million right now. Very big price, but they only made 106 of them. And that puts the market cap around $250 million. That's like 1/5 of the Carrera GTs and the Ford GTs and the 918 Spiders and the Enzos and the F50s. It is just not as desired by the market. $2.2 million. The McLaren Speedtail market cap is about the same as the BMW M1, the Ferrari Super America, the 575M. It's just not that desired on the market. And this tells you why McLaren's special car production runs are so limited, because they know if they made cars in some of the numbers that these other brands did, they would get destroyed. The Speedtail, if they made 900 of them, like 918 Spider, like LaFerrari, let me tell you, the values would probably, the market cap would probably be about the same as it is now. And that means each car would be selling for a couple $100,000. And so McLaren limits production greatly. Their cars, some of their cars seem very expensive, but when you think about it on a per car basis, they're not getting up there into the upper echelons. Here's another interesting one. The Bugatti Veyron seems cheap. They made 450 Veyrons. The average price these days is around 1.5 million for a $675 million market cap. That's less than the Lamborghini Diablo. The Veyron seems like a deal. I think the problem with that car is just ownership cost. It has this reputation for being tremendously difficult to own, to operate, to use, and I think that has dogged that car in the used market. And I think the reason they aren't more valuable is because of that. Despite the fact that it's an incredible feat of engineering, that it was the fastest car in the world, that it's beautiful and cool and iconic, it just hasn't seen value appreciation because people are terrified of owning one. And by the way, I know a few Veyron owners, and people are terrified for good reason. Let me put it that way. One other thing that I've noticed is the 959 is pretty cheap. There's only 292 Porsche 959s. They sell for a little more than $2 million these days for a 600 million market cap, and I think that seems cheap when you consider just how rare that car is and just how special it is in the anthology of Porsche. Turbocharged engine, all-wheel drive, big wide body. For a supercar, that almost set the stage for like how modern supercars are. So many of them took on some of those traits later. And Porsche enthusiasm has been significantly increasing over the years, and it's been surprising to see the 959 to some extent kind of left in the dust. It wasn't long ago those were $800,000 cars, and it seemed crazy because 918s were 3 times that or 2 times that, and you know, people were almost paying that for nice 993 Turbo S's, and it was like, why not the 959? Well, it's finally started coming up, and I think it will continue. And mark my words, for a long time there was this special collection you could get of Ferraris that was the supercars. The 288, the F40, the F50, the Enzo, and the LaFerrari. That is now splintered a bit because no one is really sure what a supercar is anymore from Ferrari. Does the SP3 count? Does the SF90 count? So I think maybe the Ferrari supercar collection has been bookended, but the Porsche supercar collection is just getting started. If you have a 959, a Carrera GT, and a 918 Spider, well, there's your Porsche supercar collection starting to take shape. And Porsche seems to be committed to making more of these special supercars, which I think will only increase the interest in the other ones. And which one is the hardest to find? That would be the 959 with only 292 made. If you want the Porsche supercar collection, it's easy to find a Carrera GT, 1270 units. It's easy to find a 918 at 918 units. Finding a 959 is harder, and that's going to push prices higher and higher. Mark my words. That's my exotic car market cap theory. I have no idea if this information is valuable or useful, and I have a suspicion that there are going to be some people who tear it apart, and they're like, well, there's millions of Toyota Corollas, and they sell for $20,000, so they're the most valuable car. It's meant to only be used in this way, okay? And it might just be stupid. I don't know anything. But I think it is an interesting way of looking at it. Instead of just saying, oh, this car costs a lot, it's very expensive, actually looking at it from a production numbers point of view and thinking, okay, maybe this car is less expensive than I realized. Maybe this car is more expensive than I realized. And I think this does a good job of helping give a different perspective on exotic car values. Or maybe it's just stupid. I have a suspicion I will find out with comments and strongly worded emails. So anyway, there you go, my exotic car market cap pricing theory.